Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Live. Well, US tariffs on Indian goods are escalating the trade war, we all know that. But who is really paying the price? In this video, we will break down how the new tariffs on Indian imports are leading to higher cost and inflation for the American consumers and businesses. We will explore the unintended consequences of the US India trade war, analyzing the economics of this incident and how there is going to be a significant negative impact on the US economy. Let's go. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host CK and today we are diving deep into the topic that is making the headlines across the globe: the escalating trade tensions between United States of America and India. Specifically, we are going to explore a provocative but increasingly relevant idea that the US tariffs on Indian goods are becoming self-inflicting wounds. In an increasing interconnected world, trade wars are rarely simple. They are complex web of economics, politics and social consequences. And while the stated goals of tariff is often to protect domestic industry or to exert leverage, the reality on ground can be far from nuanced and sometimes entirely counterproductive for the imposing nation. This and many economists argue is precisely what we are seeing unfold in the US India trade dynamics. For years, the US and India have been touted as the natural partners, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, sharing democratic values, common interest in balancing regional powers. However, the recent action from Washington have casted a shadow over the relationship, introducing significant economic friction. The core of the issue lies in the series of tariffs imposed by the United States on wide range of Indian goods. Initially, these were framed as a reciprocal tariff, a response to what the US perceived as unfair trade practice or market access issue. But more recently, we have seen an additional layer, which is they are calling penalty, a form of tariff, explicitly linked to India's continued purchase of the discounted Russian oil. Let's break down the mechanics. We are talking about the combined 50% tariff on many Indian products, an initial 25% reciprocal tariff layered with an additional 25% penalty. Think about that for a moment. Half the value of the goods going directly into tariff before they are even reaches the consumer. So which sectors are feeling the heat? Primarily India's labor intensive industries I think those are the worst hit. We are talking about the vibrant textile industry, intricate gems and jewelry, high quality leather goods, and significant portion of the seafood export, particularly shrimp. These are sectors that employ millions in India and represent a substantial part of their export revenue. Imagine the impact on small garment manufacturer anywhere in India struggling to compete with their product effectively costly now by 50%, and it will land in US at a very high price in the stores. It's going to be a massive hurdle for small business company. Interestingly, some critical sectors like pharmaceuticals and certain electronics have been exempted. This suggests a strategic pick and choose approach, likely to avoid immediately disrupting supply chain for essential goods or products where the US has a higher dependency. But the impact on non-exempt sectors remains severe. Now let's turn our attention to the self-inflicting wound aspect. The conventional wisdom behind tariff is often to protect the domestic industry for making imported goods more expensive, thereby encouraging consumers to buy locally. It also used as a tool of leverage to push other countries to change their policies. However, a growing chorus of the economists, including those from within the US and globally, are warning that these tariffs might be doing more harm than good to the US itself. How does this work? It boils down to fundamental principles of economics. Tariffs are essentially taxes. And who pays those taxes? Ultimately, it is often the consumer in the importing country. So when US importers bring in Indian textiles or leather goods, they now have to pay an extra 50% to the US government. To maintain their profit margin, they will have, they have too many choices. Number one is absorb the cost, which often isn't sustainable, or pass that cost onto the retailer, who then pass it on to the consumer, and then he passes to the end customer. This directly leads to the higher price on the vast array of everyday goods. Consider the inflation angle. The US economy has been grappling with inflation for some time. Adding significant tariffs on a major trading partner like India only increase the problem, multiply it in fact. If the cost of the clothing, certain food or home furnishing rises due to these tariffs, it means your dollar simply buys less. Your purchasing power decreases. Reports from institutes like State Bank of India, while naturally looking out for India's interest, offer a stark warning that resonates globally. They highlight that the increased cost of these imported goods aren't just a burden for Indian exporters, they become an increased cost of living for American families. Let's think about the businesses involved. Many American companies rely on Indian suppliers for components, raw materials, or finished goods. These tariffs disrupt the established supply chain, forcing businesses to either pay more or seek out new, potentially less efficient or more expensive suppliers. This adds complexities, uncertainty, and ultimately cost to their operations. Small and medium-sized businesses, which often have thinner margins, are particularly vulnerable. They might be forced to reduce staff, delay investments, or even shut down. Beyond the immediate economic impact, there is a significant geopolitical dimension. The penalty, a tariff specifically tied to India's oil purchase from Russia, introduce a layer of complexities. From India's perspective, their energy needs are paramount. Russia has offered discounted oil, a crucial factor for developing economy with a massive population like India. India has consistently defended its sovereign right to make decisions that serve its national interest, particularly concerning energy security. They argued that their purchases are a small fraction of the global consumption, and that demanding they seize these purchases without offering viable, equally affordable alternative is unreasonable. And how has India responded to these tariffs? Crucially, they have refrained from imposing retaliatory tariffs on US. This is a strategic move, avoiding a full-blown tariff war that could further harm global trade. Instead, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has doubled down on the Swadeshi or Made in India movement. The call for self-reliance and boosting domestic consumption isn't just rhetoric, it is becoming a national economic strategy. The Indian government is actively working on mitigating the impact on its exporters through several measures, starting with the financial relief. This measure will provide immediate liquidity to exporters struggling with tariffs. Market diversification. Launching aggressive outreach program in new markets like UK, Japan, and South Korea, aiming to reduce dependency on the US market for its textile and other exports. This isn't just about weathering the current storm, it's about long-term strategic reorientation. And then finally, GST cuts. Considering adjustments to the goods and services tax structure to stimulate domestic demand, further bolstering the Made in India initiative. The broader diplomatic implication is also significant. These tariffs have undeniably strained the relationship between the two countries. While both sides still acknowledge the importance of their strategic partnership, the economic friction creates an underlying tension. We've already seen bilateral trade deals negotiation postponed, with scheduled U.S. delegation visit deferred. This suggests a freeze in progress on broader economic cooperation, which could have long-term implications for shared objectives. So if the US consumer is paying more and American businesses are facing supply chain disruption and India is diversifying its trade partners, who, if anyone, benefit from this self-inflicting wound? That's the question. In the short term, some domestic US industries might see slight advantage if consumers are forced to buy American goods that were previously competing with Indian imports. However, this often comes at a higher price for the consumer, negating some of its benefit. More likely, other countries stands to gain. Nations like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and even parts of Central America, which produces similar goods to India, could see an increase in demand from the US importers looking for alternatives to Indian products now made more expensive by the tariffs. So instead of boosting US production, the tariff might simply shift trade flow to other competing nations. Furthermore, these tariffs paradoxically create an opening for India to strengthen ties elsewhere. As Indian Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal firmly stated, India will not bow down to pressure. This resolute stance, combined with the need to find new markets, could lead to diplomatic re-engagement with countries like China. A reported meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping suggests that India's facing pressure from one major power might seek to balance its geopolitical interests by strengthening ties with another. This is a complex dance of the global at the global stage, and the US tariff might be pushing India towards new strategic alignment. So in conclusion, the narrative around the US tariff on India as a self-inflicting wound is gaining significant traction for compelling reasons. While the US aims to achieve specific policy objectives, the economic fallout appears to be creating more pain for American consumers and businesses through increased inflation and disrupted supply chain. India, rather than retaliating with its own tariff, is focusing on resilience, self-reliance, and diversifying its global trade partnership. This strategic response not only aims to mitigate the immediate impact, but also has the potential to reshape long-term relations and geopolitical alignments. The lesson here is clear. In a globalized economy, protectionist measures, while seemingly simple, often have complex, unintended, and often detrimental consequences for very nations implementing them. The US India trade dynamic is a powerful reminder that sometimes the cost of trade war are paid not by the intended target but by the imposing nation's own citizens. So friends, what are your thoughts on this escalating trade situation? Do you agree that these tariffs are self-inflicting wound, or do you see a different outcome? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you found this analysis insightful, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on the global economics and current affairs. See you in the next one. Friends, in the increasingly interconnected world, trade wars are rarely simple. They are complex web of economics, politics, and the social consequences. And while the stated goals of tariff is often to protect the domestic industries or to exert leverage, the reality on the ground can be far from uh, गलत हो गया गलत हाँ हाँ 600 आया 650 बोल रहे हैं लोग मर गए Friends, in an increasingly interconnected world, trade wars are rarely simple. They are complex web of economic, politics, and social consequences. And while the अरे गलत दबा दिया Friends, in an increasingly interconnected world, trade wars are rarely simple. They are complex web of economics, politics, and social consequences. And while the stated goal of tariffs is often to protect domestic industry or to exert leverage, the reality on the ground can be far more nuanced and sometimes entirely counterproductive for the imposing nation. This many economists urge is precisely what we are seeing unfold in the U.S. India trade dynamics. If you want to know more about this, click here for a long form video. Friends, in an increasingly interconnected world, trade wars are rarely simple. They are complex web of economics, politics, and social consequences. And while the stated goal of tariff is often to protect domestic industry or to exert leverage, the reality on the ground can be far more nuanced and sometimes entirely counterproductive for the imposing nation. This many economists urge is precisely what we are seeing unfold in the U.S. India trade dynamics. If you want to know more about this, click here for a long form video. Hello friends, welcome to Akul Mac Live. Well, US tariffs on Indian goods are escalating the trade war, we all know that. But who is really paying the price?